Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back to News Dose. So, do you remember earlier this week whenever I said Xbox has been a little quiet here recently? Yeah, well, that's changed. They have been in the news all week long, especially when it comes to Xbox Game Pass. And well, that continues on today as they revealed even more Xbox Game Pass games that's releasing all on the same day. And when you look at this, it's debatably the best singular day ever for Xbox Game Pass. Not only are you getting several day one releases here, but you're also getting already proven high quality games. So we're going to go over all of that today. Then also, PlayStation acquired yet another studio. They've been pretty busy over the last year acquiring all of these studios, but this one here is their biggest one yet. So we're going to go over that as well, plus plenty more. It was unexpectedly a very busy day. So let's just go and jump right into it, starting off with the Game Awards. Yes, Jeff Keighley once again will be hosting the Game Awards, and it now has an official date for December 9th. And on top of that, it's also going to be live in person from the Microsoft Theater. And that right there is really interesting because a lot of the events that we've seen here recently have been digital. So this being one of the biggest gaming events in general, being live in person, that's actually really exciting. I mean, in the past, it's always been E3, Gamescom, and the Game Awards. Those are your three real big events, but even with E3 and Gamescom this year, those have been more digital. So it is exciting to see a big event like this in person once again after we've taken a bit of a hiatus on events like this over the last year and a half. It will be really nice to hear a crowd once again react to all of the games that gets revealed here. This is something that Jeff Keighley does like to do. He likes to make his events into big spectacles. He brings in actors, he puts on live orchestras, and he reveals a ton of games. Now, I'm not always a big fan of all of the extra stuff included that Jeff Keighley brings along, but it will be really nice to see all of this stuff this year and get that reaction from the crowd. So really, really excited about this one. Again, the Game Awards will take place on December 9th. Next up here, it looks like the Nintendo Switch Pro rumors are back once again. Yeah, these rumors just will not die down even after the Switch OLED was announced. In fact, the Switch OLED is coming out in just a little over a week from now. Yet, now here we are hearing about the Nintendo Switch Pro. And this one is coming from a report over at Bloomberg. Bloomberg claims that at least 11 companies, including Zynga, have software toolkits provided by Nintendo that feature support for 4K graphics. And this device is planned to release in late 2022. Now, the first thing that kind of stood out to me when it comes to this report is that they did specifically name a company here, being Zynga. A lot of the times with these reports, they keep things anonymous, but here they do leave a paper trail with Zynga. So I found that one to be really interesting because it's just too specific to just kind of make up. Now, at the same time, I mean, we've seen reports like this in the past, and so far, they haven't exactly turned out to be true. I mean, just before the Nintendo Switch OLED was announced, places like Bloomberg was actually reporting that Nintendo was working on a Switch 4K style of device. And, well, lo and behold, we got the Switch OLED instead. Now, maybe they internally delayed this Switch Pro-like device, but even then, I mean, I just think when you see reports like this, you kind of have to be weary about them. You just kind of got to take them with a grain of salt. And well, actually, interestingly enough, Nintendo responded to this specific report. If you take a look over here, Nintendo says this: a news report on September 30th, 2021 falsely claims that Nintendo is supplying tools to drive game development for a Nintendo Switch with 4K support. To ensure correct understanding among our investors and customers, we want to clarify that this report is not true. We also want to restate that, as we announced in July, we have no plans for any new model other than Nintendo Switch OLED model, which will launch on October 8th, 2021. So yeah, Nintendo swiftly denied the report here by Bloomberg, as they very well should have. And the reason for that is because, yes, they do have that Switch OLED coming out in just a little over a week, and you don't want any kind of rumors going around that a Switch Pro exists, because customers will hold off on buying that Switch OLED if there's an even more powerful Switch that comes out next year. So it is in the best interest for Nintendo to squash these rumors now before they really start to get rolling. However, even with all that said, it's been pointed out quite a bit online today that Nintendo has done things like this in the past where, a device does get leaked out early, and then they come out and they say that this claim has been false. And then like a couple weeks later, they announce said device. Apparently they did this with the 3D XL actually, where they denied on June 4th, 2012 that they were not doing a redesign for the 3DS. And then they later on announced the 3DS XL just a couple weeks later on June 22nd. So this is kind of a situation where fans aren't just necessarily going to believe Nintendo at face value. This is kind of what you get for being misleading about this type of stuff in the past, because now your fans don't believe you when you say, no, this is not necessarily happening. Now, at the same time, I'm not here claiming that the Nintendo Switch Pro exists or that they're going to be releasing a 4K Switch sometime in 2022. We've kind of been hearing about this thing for 3 years now, so, if it happens, then great. If it doesn't, then that's fine as well. But I'm not going to run down this rabbit hole of all of these Switch Pro rumors because, we've done that in the past. It didn't turn out to be the case, so if it happens, I'm just going to kind of wait and see. But let me know in the comments below on what you think about all this. Do you believe Bloomberg here, or do you believe Nintendo? Next up, let's talk about Xbox Game Pass yet again. We have been talking a lot about Game Pass this week as they pretty consistently stayed in the news, and well, that continues on today as they revealed even more games. And what's kind of cool about this announcement is that every game that I'm about ready to talk about will all be available today. Yeah, so let's just go and check this out. AI the Somnium Files, Mighty Goose, Marvel's Avengers, Scarlet Nexus, and Astria Ascending will all be available today on September 30th. And this is an absolutely amazing lineup of games. Debatably, actually, this might very well possibly be the best singular day ever for Xbox Game Pass. And that's for various reasons. For starters, you have a couple of big games here. Marvel's Avengers was announced earlier this week. We talked about this one already, but this is a big AAA game that will now be available in Xbox Game Pass. Now, it's got some issues, and it probably would have been better suited as a single-player game, but nonetheless, you will have the complete experience for the Avengers available in Xbox Game Pass. So that's already exciting, but I actually find Scarlet Nexus to be even more exciting. This is a AAA JRPG that released just earlier this year, and it's actually probably one of the better anime-style JRPGs that's released in the last couple years for that matter. I actually do own this one myself, and if you do like anime-style JRPGs or if you like action games, then I would highly recommend playing Scarlet Nexus. It's really got it all. It's got fun action-driven gameplay, an interesting story, I like the art style, and if you do like these style of games, you might want to check out Scarlet Nexus. But that's not quite everything here, because you also have a couple of day one releases being Astria Ascending and then Mighty Goose. Now, we already knew about Astria Ascending. This is a striking game from an artistic standpoint that kind of mimics Vanillaware games. It's really unique in how it looks, but this is a JRPG that does have a writer that's worked on the Final Fantasy VII Remake as well as Final Fantasy X. As a big fan of Final Fantasy, that is something that stands out to me. Now, as for Mighty Goose, this is a game that kind of took me by surprise. This is a run and gunner with a lot of attitude where you play as a goose. There's of course Untitled Goose Game, but now we also have Mighty Goose, and you know what? This game actually looks like a lot of fun. It kind of reminds me of Game Boy Advance games in a way, but I look at this game and I think it looks like a blast. I've never heard of this game until today, but now that I've seen it, yeah, I want to play it. It just looks like it's going to be pure fun. So really, all of the games that we've talked about so far have been interesting, and I can also say the same thing about AI the Somnium Files. Now, this is a game that I do own on the Nintendo Switch, and I can honestly say it is good. Now, this is kind of like a graphic novel style of game, and if you played the Zero Escape series, this is actually coming from the same person. You do play as a detective with an AI eyeball that has her own personality, and you're looking into some serial killings. So it is pretty dark, but it has a good story with plenty of branching paths. The characters are interesting in this game, and truly, I would say that AI the Somnium Files is just an absolute hidden gem. It might not necessarily be a game that sold millions and millions of copies, but it is a great game nonetheless, and something that I would recommend, especially if you want a good story game with an interesting mystery to solve. But yeah, when you look at it, all of these games will be available in Xbox Game Pass today on September 30th. And that is just so insane. You got some proven high quality games here, you got some day one releases, and some big AAA games. Now the tough decision becomes, which one do you play first? And actually, let me know in the comments below on which game here you're most excited to play yourself. Now, we also got some big news for PlayStation as they acquired yet another studio, and this is very possibly their biggest yet, and that is for Bluepoint Games. Yes, there was a rumor earlier this year that they acquired Bluepoint Games, as they accidentally revealed this on Twitter and then they took it back, and in Bluepoint Games they said on their Twitter profile that they were a fully independent studio. But well, here we are. They were indeed acquired after all. Yes, it indeed is now official, and I just love this acquisition. PlayStation and Bluepoint Games have quite a history of working together on exclusive titles, specifically when it comes to remakes and remasters. Bluepoint Games did work on Uncharted: The Nathan Drake Collection, Shadow of the Colossus remake, and most recently, the Demon's Souls remake for the PlayStation 5. Now, it's no secret that Demon's Souls is my favorite game that's released on the PlayStation 5 so far. That game is just so good in so many ways. Visually, it looks stunning, the gameplay is excellent, I love the world, it's atmospheric, and all of this was made a reality because of Bluepoint Games. They just do such a good job with their remakes. Demon's Souls was always a good game, but they just took it to the next level here with that Demon's Souls remake. And I like the idea of PlayStation acquiring a studio like this because, again, they already have a great history with one another. Bluepoint has already proven to be an excellent studio when it comes to remakes, and now that they own Bluepoint, they could really just open up their entire back catalog of IP and just let them run wild. I mean, can you imagine Bluepoint remaking a game like Legends of Dragoon as an example? Now, that would be really exciting, but that's kind of the thing about this acquisition. There is that possibility that they could go back and remake some of these older PlayStation games. There has been this trend of remaking games, and really there's not many studios that does it as good as Bluepoint Games. And I personally like this trend, and yeah, I'm very excited to see them do more of that with PlayStation now that they are an official PlayStation studio. At the same time, though, Bluepoint Games have shown interest in the past in working on their own original games as well, so I don't think that they're necessarily just a remake studio. We could see them come up with their own original IP at some point, so don't discount that happening either. Something else that they could possibly do is take an existing franchise such as Sly Cooper or Jak and Daxter and then make a sequel that fans have been asking for years and years. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen or anything, but my point is that I don't think that they're necessarily just a remake studio only. We'll kind of see what happens with this, but I do think that this acquisition just makes way too much sense. PlayStation and Bluepoint Games just makes a perfect team here, and they go hand in hand. One thing is for certain though, PlayStation has been very busy acquiring studios over the last year, as this is now the 5th studio acquisition. They've now acquired Nexus, Fabric, Firesprite, Housemarque, and Bluepoint Games. Yeah, PlayStation has been pretty busy. Now, before I go, we do have one last thing to talk about, because it looks like that Grand Theft Auto Remaster Trilogy might be true after all. A couple months ago, of course, Kotaku did claim that a Grand Theft Auto Remaster Trilogy was in development for PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and even the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, it would be kind of cool to get some of these mainline Grand Theft Auto games on a Nintendo device, but for the time being, all of this is just a rumor. However, we did actually get some more information today that suggests that rumor might actually be true after all. Yeah, so now a Grand Theft Auto Remastered Trilogy has appeared on the Korean ratings board. And this is something that we have seen a lot here in the last year, where a game gets rated somewhere and then shortly thereafter an official announcement is made. Most recently, we saw that happen with the Castlevania Game Boy Advance collection, so there is reason to believe that this GTA trilogy does indeed exist. We'll kind of see how all this plays out, but according to that original rumor, if this is true, then that means that Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas will all be included in this collection. And that's a lot of good games right there. Yes, these games artistically have aged quite a bit, but you know, there's still a lot of fun all these years later. And with how popular the Grand Theft Auto franchise is, I expect a lot of people to be pretty excited about this. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, are you concerned with Netflix entering the gaming space by acquiring Night School Studio? Night School Studio is a well-known independent developer, and it was a little surprising to see Netflix acquire a studio like this. I mean, we've known for a little while now that they were looking to enter the gaming business, but yeah, they flat out acquired a well-known studio, and with them being such a big corporation, I wanted to see what your all's thoughts was about this specific topic. And well, it seems like for the most part, you all are not concerned. Only 22% of you said yes, while 68% said no. It seems as if several of you all are taking the wait and see approach here, and I think that's actually the smart thing to do because we don't really know what their full plans are when it comes to game studios like this. Are they going to make them exclusive to Netflix streaming, or are they going to instead continue to release them on PC and consoles? I mean, here recently, even with Amazon, they did release New World onto Steam. I mean, there's just such a big market out there on consoles and PC, so it'll be curious to see what Netflix does here and whether or not they decide to make their games exclusive. We also saw this with Google Stadia. That was a big corporation trying to enter the gaming world, and well, they kind of failed at that. Now, Netflix is already a well-established subscription service, though, so they could possibly release their games into Netflix and have some more success than Google Stadia did. So yeah, I'm with you all here. I'm not really concerned myself, but definitely interested to see what their plans are going forward. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.